Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 11. Memory Transcription, Subject, Slanik, Venlil Space Corps. Date, Standardized Human Time, August 30, 2136. The glow of the artificial light was the first thing that met my eyes. I stared at the unfamiliar surroundings in confusion, trying to recall where I was. This doesn't seem right. How did I get here? Someone had cocooned me in a blanket, which insulated me from the drafty room. There was a light pressure by my ears, perhaps from some sort of bandage. Pain pulsed my temple, dulled by the painkiller. Snippets of shapes lingered in my memory, but there was something concrete. I think I had been drifting in and out of consciousness for days. My brain concluded that this was a hospital, which meant that I was recovering from a serious injury. My adult state suggested the damage was concentrated on the head. Gritting my teeth, I tried to think of the last thing I could remember. 2 Orcs bombers were chasing my spacecraft, and after that, everything got fuzzy. How was I still alive? It had seemed to be a hopeless scenario. There was a grim certainty that they would catch a small ship sooner or later. There were vague recollections of being paralyzed in fear. Plastered against the seat, the person flying was screaming my name and had the most visceral look on their predator. I snapped upright. Marcel! Where is Marcel? What happened to him? Easy, calm down. A gentle voice came from my right. A Takan male was seated beside my bed, keeping an eye on my vitals. You are safe now. I am Dr. Zahn. You're in the medical bay of a Federation warship. The Federation? My heart rate spiked, which Zahn seemed to notice. Why are you involved? Well, your craft came into our territory, so we took out the Oxel. It was fortunate that the Greys crippled your ship first. If they didn't, our boarding party wouldn't... Where is Marcel? I blurted out. The rush of panic was best described as gasoline laced through my insides. It was not safe for him to encounter unprepared aliens alone. When his appearance was so jarring, my mind leapt to the worst-case scenario. Had the Federation killed the human on sight? All I could picture was myself standing over his corpse. The doctor patted my arm. He is not here. Rest easy. He is not a threat. He's alive, I exhaled. Please, take me to him. I don't think that is a good idea. I need to see him. I won't be able to function if I don't. I staggered to my feet, but wobbled when I tried to walk. Zahn caught me with a grunt, setting me back on the bed. Sympathy flashed in his amber eyes, as if he sensed my desperation. The doctor retrieved a wheelchair from the storage closet and eased me into it. Captain Sovlin is going to kill me, but if that's really what you need to heal, then, all right, Zahn grumbled. The Takan doctor pushed me into a hallway, steering us past maintenance rooms and lounges. My concern intensified as I received pitying stares from the crewmates we passed. It reminded me of the look people had when they learned a species' homeworld had been destroyed by the Oxel. Had the Federation assumed that the humans attacked Venlil Prime? Oh God, how long have I been out? They would at least hear Marcel out, right? They're rational people, I tried to convince myself. I need to back up his story before something terrible happens. I have to speak to that captain at once. A pair of automatic doors creaked open, and Zahn rolled me into an observation room. A throng of officers stood by the glass pane, which proved to have viewed into a holding cell. They seemed to be pointing to a spot in the corner. From their whispers, I caught the words non-responsive and hungry. My blood turned to ice as I realized that the tan mass of Nook was. Marcel was curled up in a ball, hugging his knees to his chest. The human was shaking from head to toe and looked gaunt enough to hardly be recognizable. His coverings had been removed, leaving his form exposed and barren. His face was buried in the wall, so I could only see the purple bruises lining his spine. A desperate scream poured from my mouth. I pitched and agonized. I flung myself towards the window, crawling on all fours. The sounds of the doctors trying to pacify me and bewildered shouts of the captain registered, but I drowned them out. Marcel! I screamed. Pain laced through my vocal cords from the volume, but it hardly felt it. The human lifted his head, craning his neck towards the glass. The moment his face became visible, I gasped in horror. Claw marks traced his right cheek, deep gashes. Marcel hadn't even bothered to clean off the dried blood, perhaps losing the ability to care. The sockets around his hazel eyes were puffy and bruised. The left one was severe enough to be swollen shut, and add insult to injury, the thick metal band that was clasped around his neck, restricting his airway. The human rose on weak legs, but stumbled to the glass, his gaze locked on me, and his lips curved up slightly. The band on his neck crackled with electricity seconds later. With a yelp, the predator collapsed in a heap. One of the officers must have triggered the shock as a form of punitive control. My heart twisted, watching my friend racked with pain. I snarled towards the Federation posse. "Stop that!" The one I believed Captain Sovlin blinked in confusion. "It is snarling at you. That's how humans show happiness. They don't have tails or movable ears," I growled. The electric current ceased. To my relief, Marcel languished on the floor, clutching his throat. The skin beneath the collar looked red, as though the human had been zapped repeatedly. I was amazed that he found the strength to answer my call the first time. "Marcel," I repeated. The predator struggled to a kneeling position and pressed the splayed hand against the glass. The Federation officers backed away, like they thought that he could reach through the solid object. Tears welled in my eyes. The poor guy was struggling with such simple motions. I met his gaze and placed my own paw up opposite his palm. "Slanek," Marcel croaked, "I am happy you're okay. I was worried." I pinned my ears against my head with concern. The human's voice sounded weak and feeble. I could only imagine how much he was hurting, looking at the wounds all over his body. By my estimation, they weren't feeding him either. The Federation was letting him endure a slow death by starvation. I sniffled, wiping a tear off my face. "I am so sorry, Mark. It was my job to protect you, and I failed. I left you all alone." "Don't cry, but please. It is not your fault," the human murmured. Dr. Zahn seemed floored by our exchange, as though he didn't understand what was happening. A paw grasped my scruff and dragged me away from the glass. I reared my assailant, flexing my claws as best I could. There was no chance I was letting anyone take me away from the human. "What is wrong with you, Slanek?" Captain Sovlin set me down in the hallway, deflecting an attempt to swing. "You are crying over a vicious, sadistic predator, a human." "What is wrong with me?" The veins in my eyes bulged as the white-hot fury coursed through my blood. "How could you do that to him? Marcel is my friend." "I thought that you'd be more grateful being liberated. A species that enslaves and exploits you are not your friends. I can't believe I have to say that." "We weren't enslaved. We're partners with them, willingly." Sovlin recoiled. "I'm sorry. What?" "A science vessel made contact with us. After speaking with them, we couldn't let you chase their trail. We knew this was what you feckers would do to an innocent species that came in peace." I refuse to believe that. The distress signal, their history, well, just look at them," he spat, spines bristling. "The Venlil wouldn't betray the Federation, not for their kind. Do you have any idea which species you're dealing with?" "We do. Venlil scientists did tests that prove that humans feel empathy. They're kind and gentle. Marcel is kind and gentle." "Kind and gentle, as if. I can think of a quick way to sober you up." The captain's voice was low in anger. "Marcel hasn't eaten in days. Let's see how gentle he really is." Sovlin grabbed me by the scruff again and marched back into the observation room. He opened the door to the holding cell, flinging me inside with disdain. Zahn shouted at him to stop. Once it was obvious what his intention was. The doctor tried to remind him that I had a head injury, not to mention being under the influence of painkillers. The rough officer ignored him and clicked the door shut behind me. A brief tug of fear crossed my mind. I knew Marcel didn't want to eat me, but this might be pushing his instincts. When his options were starving to death or gnawing at my bones, there had to be some temptation. The human glanced at me, surprised at my involuntary entrance. Russet hair sprouted along his jawline, which gave him a rougher look than I was used to. He approached cautiously and watched me with sad eyes, seeing that I didn't back away. He settled down beside me. This was the closest we'd ever been, which made the discoloration around his left eye all the more noticeable. "What happened to your eye?" I managed. Sovlin was tired of looking at me. Said next time he would do it with claws out, and then the human gestured to the gash on his cheek. "It's everything I do, Slenek. They hate my existence." I reached out with a shaking paw, tracing the wound. "Does it hurt?" "Keep going with the stupid question, Slenek. Bravo, you're really making him feel better." Marcel nodded. "Everywhere." The fissure inside my chest widened. The way his voice cracked with that word was heartbreaking. The human lowered his head into his hands, and defeat radiated through his posture. I couldn't bear to see the sharp, considerate Marcel reduced to this. "I'm going to get you out of here." "I promise," I whimpered. "My friend, don't make promises you can't keep," the human coughed. My paws tugged the predator closer to me before I realized I had done it. Marcel's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but he didn't try to put away. He rested his head on my stomach and tried to absorb some of my body warmth. I petted his hair with a tentative paw, humming soothingly. His oily mane was softer than I expected it to be, except for the strands that were crusted with dry blood. The human closed his hunter eyes, relaxing into my arms. A more peaceful expression settled onto his face, and I observed him with fondness. Sovlin was right. I saw exactly how gentle Marcel was, with his bruised skull cradled in my lap and his shivering body snuggled up against mine. He seemed so frail and innocent. "But I will get you out of here, because you are my brother. You are my friend," I whispered, "and I love you." I thought Marcel didn't hear me, because there was no reaction or response. It wasn't until I saw a tear trickle down his cheek that I realized he had. The human reached up with a feeble hand and brought my paw over his chest. The steady beat of his heart ebbed into my toes, warm and rhythmic. At the glass pane, the Federation officers gawked at the affectionate scene between a predator and its prey. End of chapter. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons: Casper Arnholtz, Maxwell, Barkey, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian.